Hello everyone, good day to all of you. I wanted to do a review today of Crye Precision's war belt suspenders, as I have right here. And I'm going to be doing a bit of comparison throughout this video, not a huge amount because this is the focus, but I will be talking about the previous set of war belt suspenders I had on here, which is this SSO SIB war belt suspenders. And I'll talk about why I kind of got rid of them and why I switched to these. And very first though, I did want to briefly discuss, because this is applicable to war belts and all that sort of thing, is why I am using a war belt, why I think that they're still a good idea, and why I use this whole setup with suspenders and all of that. And the reason for that is simply most of the year where I'm at, and you can see right now I'm already wearing a jacket too, is that it gets pretty cold right now. The summer's kind of still hanging in there, but the temperatures are dropping quickly. So for me, most of the year I can't really comfortably wear an inner and outer belt unless I wear it on top of my clothes, and kind of defeats the purpose of those types of belts. So I've always stuck with the war belts pretty much just for that simple reason right there. So starting with a very brief comparison, as I said, I do want to talk mostly about these, and then we'll kind of get more into the weeds as we go along. But the main reason why I switched away from these SIB suspenders and moved to these is actually just one, not even the biggest issue, but a somewhat moderate issue I had with these SIB suspenders. As I noticed, as I started doing a lot more movement practice with my belt on, if I would be sprinting a lot, I noticed just from pumping my shoulders a lot and all of that sort of movement, that these had a habit to slip off my shoulder because they are quite wide. This is kind of an H harness style. One remedy for this I did find, if you do have a different set of suspenders, either these or just a similar setup, is you can cross the back. And actually, when I first had these suspenders, for quite a while I was running them that way, and actually at the time I just did it because it looked cool, but in hindsight it actually did help to keep them up a little bit better as well. But this did have other issues too. It was kind of it was just kind of overall quite wide, and since this is for the Russian systems, because this is the SSO suspenders, these actually have 6 straps, which is not normal compared to the Crye Precision. Now, Crye Precision has their own war belt. In my case, I'm not using their war belt. I'm using a HSGI slimline, or slim grip, not a slimline. Just one of their kind of slimmer padded belts, which I do quite like. And it is totally compatible. You can see right here. All you really need to look for is you need a belt that has these right here, and you need to have 4 of them. So 2 in the front, 1 right there, 1 right here on the other side, and then just 2 in the rear. You can see just right behind my butt pack right there. And obviously on the rear you have a little bit of leeway where you can kind of have these further spaced apart or a little bit closer, but this works perfectly in my case, and there's no problems whatsoever. And one other issue I did notice with these SIB suspenders, if I were to cross them in the back and kind of that X, sort of like the Rhodesian style sort of thing going on there, is that they would kind of fold upwards on the sides here, just because it's not made for that. It's made to go straight down into an H, which kind of made it, when you start to wear gear over it, it would kind of crumble up a little bit, like occasionally, somewhat oddly in areas. It wouldn't be the most comfortable. It's really not that big of an issue either, so don't get me wrong there. Compared to this, going back to the Crye Precision suspenders, you can see these are more of a just a Y sort of frame. Actually, this is very similar in shape and style to the old Alice. So the way that this attaches is pretty much the exact same as those SIB suspenders and a lot of the other war belt suspenders that I'm aware of on the market. Is you just take the strap here and you just loop it through that tri-glide and go back up. You will notice, I'll actually put up some footage right now. When I first got this, these were remarkably long, and I'm quite tall, and even for me, I had about an extra foot of just unused material. So I will say one thing that's pretty cool, just from how they made these, is they really finished the edges quite nicely. I was actually quite impressed with how kind of evenly they burnt them to prevent fraying and all that. In my case, I cut every edge because, as I said, I just had such an extreme extra amount of strap material that it was just getting in the way, and there was no way I could really nicely fold it and just keep it intact. So I just cut it and re-burnt all the edges again to prevent fraying, and it's been holding up. I've had this like this for quite some time, and especially with it being hunting season, I've been using it pretty significantly lately, as I take this belt kit pretty much everywhere that I go. Now, looking at the back of these suspenders, I did want to talk about, I saw some other questions and other reviews of people wondering what this is right here. If you look at it from the side, it almost looks like sort of like shot shell loops. So what this is you can see here, this is actually elastic material, and these loops that look kind of like the shot shell loops. As I said, they're not actually, but these just prevent the elastic from stretching too much. I actually was I wasn't really sure why they put the elastic on here when I first got these, but now that I've actually used it, it's actually really, really comfortable. I've noticed that when I'm sprinting and doing kind of the more strenuous stuff with this belt on, that the elastic, so the loops hold it so it doesn't sag too much if you are wearing a heavy belt, but it also makes it so it kind of moves more so with your body as well when you are running, and kind of stays more with your hips. Comparing that to the SIB SSO suspenders here, these kind of wanted to stay in one place, in that they would kind of stay at one height. Even if you're sprinting and your legs are moving a bunch, they would, you know, again, this wasn't a huge issue either, but they would, it was just a very slight kind of impressive improvement that I didn't think would make as much of a difference as it does. But this elastic here helps a ton. Makes this a lot more comfortable when you are running with it. I did want to mention, I don't think that these Crye suspenders would work as well as these SIB suspenders would for a heavier, like a particularly heavy belt. I usually don't think it's a good idea to have so much on your hips to where it starts to impede movement. So I usually am not a fan of super heavy belts, but if you do happen to have one of those, I will say that if you look at how thick the shoulder straps are here, or rather how wide they are, both of these are very thin, so you can wear them under plate carrier or chest rig, as I use a lot, so you can kind of plus it up nicely. Comparing these to the Cryes, you can see they are not as wide. They're still pretty wide, so they will kind of balance out the weight. They won't be digging into you anywhere. And they're pretty thin as well here, which is good. So these are both great, pretty comparable in how they fit underneath gear, which is excellent in both cases. Though one note on the Crye suspenders here is, since these do go to a Y in the rear, this does kind of just pull them closer in on your shoulders, which, as I said, was kind of an issue I had, where the SIB suspender would occasionally slip off my shoulder and would just kind of a little bit get in the way. This would also, you can kind of occasionally, depending on the type of plate carrier or chest rig or vest, whatever that you're wearing, it will kind of maybe poke out a bit on the sides, which if you look at some of my videos when I've been wearing this, you can occasionally see it. With this, I really haven't noticed that happen, so it does kind of stay more tucked in, if that matters. I really haven't found it ever getting snagged on anything ever, because even when this SIB suspender does stick out, it's not that much. It's not really a snag point, but minor benefit of these SIB, or of the Crye Precision suspenders over those SIB suspenders as well. Also, although this uses 4 connection points, as I said, 2 in the rear and then 1 on each kind of front side, this, since it does go to this Y strap in the rear, as I said, I do like that to kind of keep it more tucked in closer to me on my shoulders. But I will say, if you do have a heavier belt, again, I think for most cases, for how most people set up their belts, that this isn't going to be an issue. But if you are kind of the outlier, where you do have a lot going on in your belt, I do think it won't balance the weight as well as this SIB suspenders or something similar to these, where it's a more of an H style would work, because this is just going to put all this weight right here, and it's you know, it's still kind of balancing it out on these 2 right here, but it's not going to be as nice as something kind of more large like the SIBs. And last, this set of suspenders here, it's available in green as well as in coyote. I get everything in green. It's the best color. Ranger green, olive, all of that good stuff, and it's excellent. No issues with IR either, from what I've noticed. So to kind of conclude, I do think that these Crye Precision suspenders are a really nice set of suspenders for war belts. They are quite well made. They've been holding up great, no fraying whatsoever. Everything has been good that way. As far as the comparison goes, I do think that they are better than the SIB suspenders. If you happen to have a set of SIB suspenders, or you know, this type, I don't think there's anything wrong with them either, but I do think that these are kind of marginally better in a lot of ways. One of the big reasons I did want to talk about these as well is that I do know a lot of stuff from Russia, since this is SSO, is quite hard to get now. So I think for most of the people that will be watching this video, given my viewership analytics, that this would probably be the more available option. And also, as I said, I kind of briefly touched on it, so I did want to mention one more time, another advantage of the Crye Precision suspenders is they do play better with US and European types of belts, whereas this one, as I said, is set up for the Russian style, where it has those 6 straps. The reason you're looking, if you look at this, why you only see 4 is because I actually took the additional 2 straps and I just sewed them underneath the shoulder pads right here, which might also be why it kind of has an issue with slipping off my shoulder, because I'm not using it exactly as it was intended. It is something you can kind of retrofit and just work around a jury rig to get it to work. Thank you all for watching this review and kind of a comparison between the Crye Precision suspenders and those SIB suspenders there. Let me know if you have any other questions on these or on anything else in the comments below. Thank you for watching, especially if you made it through the whole video. And I will see you all in the next one. Take care.